So, if you've been watching this whole AI revolution from the sidelines, it's time to get in the game. We're going to go from being a spectator to a builder. And the key that unlocks all of that incredible power is something called an API. Let's dive right in and see how you can start building your very own AI applications like today.
Right? You've seen the mind-blowing demos, you've chatted with the bots, and you've probably thought, hey, I have a great idea for this. But how do you actually connect your app to the massive brain of a large language model? That is the exact question we're going to answer right now.
And here's our game plan. We're going to start with what an API even is. Then we'll make our first request. After that, we'll teach our app to remember conversations, handle the errors that always pop up, keep our costs from exploding, and finally, pick the right AI provider for whatever you're building.
All right, first up, the API. Think of it as your own magic door into the world of AI. Now, I know the term API can sound super technical and intimidating, but the concept, it's actually surprisingly simple. So let's forget about code for a minute and think about something way more familiar.
See, an API is basically just a messenger. In this perfect little analogy, your application is the customer. You write down your order, that's your prompt, and you hand it to the waiter, who is the API. Now, the waiter doesn't cook the food, right? They just take your request to the kitchen, the super powerful LLM server, and then they bring back the finished dish, which is the AI's response. That's it. It's really that simple.
So how do you actually place that first order? Let's get practical and see how this works. It really just breaks down into 3 easy steps.
First, you need an API key. Just think of it like your personal VIP pass to the club. Second, you write out your order in a specific format called JSON, and you send it to the right address, or what we call an endpoint. And third, you get your response back, also neatly packaged in that same JSON format. Key, request, response. That's the whole loop.
And when you look closely at that request, it really has 2 main parts. You've got to show your secret key, which is for authentication. That's how the service knows it's you and that you're allowed to be there. Then, you package up your actual message for the AI model. It's all about proving who you are and then asking your question.
Now, one of the coolest settings you can play with is called temperature. Set it to 0, and the AI is all business, focused, logical, predictable. If you ask it for the capital of France, it will say Paris every single time. But if you crank that temperature up to 1, you're dialing up the creativity. You introduce a little randomness, so it's perfect for brainstorming or creative writing. So you get to choose. Do you want a fact checker or a creative partner? All by just changing one number.
Okay, so you've sent a message and you've gotten a reply. Awesome. But what about when you want to have a real back-and-forth conversation? This is where a lot of new developers get tripped up.
And this really gets to the heart of the problem. By their very nature, these huge AI models have, well, the memory of a goldfish. Every single time you send a request, it's like you're meeting for the first time. The model has absolutely no clue what you were talking about just 2 seconds ago.
So how do we fix this? Well, the responsibility actually falls on you, the developer. With every single new message you send, you also have to resend the entire conversation history along with it. You package it all up using these specific roles: a system message to set the AI's personality, user for everything you say, and assistant for everything the AI has said before. It's how you create the illusion of memory.
All right, now we're getting into the stuff that separates a weekend project from a professional-grade application. Because, let's be real, in the real world, things go wrong. Your app needs to be robust enough to handle the bumps in the road without just crashing.
These are pretty much the 3 most common errors you're going to see. A 401 error just means your API key is wrong. Simple fix, just check your key. A 500 means the problem's on their end, not yours, so you should probably just wait a minute and try again. But the really interesting one is the 429, the rate limit error. This means you're just sending requests too fast.
So what do you do when the API tells you to slow down? Well, the one thing you can't do is just immediately hammer it with requests again. There's a much smarter, much more elegant way to handle this.
It's a strategy called exponential backoff. Here's how it works. After the first attempt fails, your code waits for 1 second. If that one fails too, you double it and wait for 2 seconds. Fails again, double it to 4 seconds. This approach is brilliant because it gives the server time to catch its breath, and it dramatically increases the chance that your next attempt will get through.
Okay, this is a big one. These models are incredibly powerful, but that power comes at a price. And if you're not careful, your API bill can spiral out of control, fast. So let's talk about how to keep that in check.
The basic currency of all of these models is the token. You can think of a token as being roughly 3/4 of a word. And here's the crucial part. You pay for everything. Not just the AI's clever answer, but also for the prompt and the entire conversation history you send in. It's the grand total of tokens that determines your bill.
And not all models cost the same. In fact, the prices can vary wildly. The most powerful models, like GPT-4, are amazing for really complex reasoning, but they come with a pretty hefty price tag. For simpler, faster jobs, a model like GPT 3.5 Turbo is way more economical.
And to really put that in perspective, for the exact same task, the classic GPT-4 model can be up to 60 times more expensive than GPT 3.5 Turbo. That is a massive difference. Using the most powerful model for every little thing is like using a sledgehammer to crack a nut. Sure, it'll work, but it's wildly and unnecessarily expensive.
Which brings us to the #1 most important strategy for controlling your costs: just use the right tool for the right job. If you just need a quick summary of a paragraph or to pull a name out of an email, use a fast, cheap model. Save the expensive, heavyweight models for the jobs that genuinely need that high-level brain power.
Finally, let's talk about the landscape of providers out there. Because it's not just about one company anymore. You've got real choices, and each one brings something different to the table.
So here's a quick cheat sheet. OpenAI is still pretty much the king for top-tier complex reasoning and coding tasks. Anthropic, with their Claude models, is fantastic at handling really long documents, and they put a huge emphasis on safety. And then there's Google's Gemini models, which are leading the charge in multimodal tasks, meaning they can understand not just text, but images and even video too.
And there you have it. We've covered the fundamentals: how to make a call, manage a conversation, handle errors, and control your costs. You now have the core developer's toolkit to go from just using AI to actually building with it. So the only question left is, what are you going to build first?